There was an evening that seemed utterly unremarkable until my husband's eyes told me everything I had feared. He had chosen another woman, and in that instant my heart turned from shock, that gut punch of disbelief, to a quiet, burning resolve. He had no idea that his choice would lead to a moment where I would do something that left him absolutely speechless. So, let me introduce myself, not just as a storyteller, but as someone who once believed in a love story that felt unbreakable. I know, it sounds like the kind of tale you might roll your eyes at, but trust me, it matters. I am the woman who once danced in the kitchen with a heart full of ha-ha-ha moments, who believed that a happy ending was just a matter of holding on tight. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Why does this matter? Because what happened to me is not just my story. It is a story that might resonate with anyone who has ever felt the sting of betrayal. It is about the moment you realize that the fairy tale you were living has a plot twist, and that twist is what makes you stronger. So, if you are listening, know that this is about finding yourself in the ruins and turning those moments of heartbreak into a new kind of strength. This is why it matters, because by the end, you might just see a bit of your own story in mine, and maybe even let out a little ha-ha-ha along the way. Let us step back into a time that now seems like a distant, bittersweet melody. Once upon a time, my world was painted in the soft hues of a love that felt utterly unbreakable. Those were the days when every morning felt like a page from a fairy tale, and every laugh, the ha-ha-ha moments, felt like music. We were that couple that people envied, the pair that seemed to have cracked the code of everlasting happiness. We had our little rituals, Sunday brunches, late-night movies, whispered dreams about the future. It was the kind of love that made you believe in forever. But life, now we reach the chapter that is both painful and transformative. The slow unraveling of a love that once felt like it could withstand anything. It started so subtly, like a gentle breeze that you barely notice until it becomes a chilling wind. One day, you are laughing together over morning coffee, and the next, you are wondering why his eyes seem to drift to a place you cannot follow. A quiet heartbreak of watching someone you love slowly slip away. At first, I told myself it was just a phase. How we fool ourselves with nervous laughter. But the signs grew clearer. The lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume, the way he began to guard his phone like it held the secrets of the universe. The distant tone in his voice when he said, "I love you," out of habit, rather than feeling. It was like watching a slow-motion fade. Each day, a little more of him slipped away. I would lie awake at night, whispering into the darkness, wondering if I was losing my mind or just losing him. Those nights were the hardest, the silence heavier than any argument. But let me tell you, as his heart began to drift, something inside me began to stir. Because when you watch the person you love become a stranger, you also start to find a new version of yourself. The tears that once came so easily began to dry, replaced by a quiet determination. I realized that his drifting heart was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would learn to stand on my own. Yes, even in the midst of heartbreak, I found reasons to laugh again, even if it was just at the irony of it all. And so, the decline of our love became the rise of my own strength. I learned that sometimes you have to let go of what was to embrace what can be. His drifting heart was a lesson, a painful one, but one that taught me that my own heart was stronger than I ever knew. The beauty of discovering yourself in the midst of loss. In the end, his drifting heart was the push I needed to find my own way, and that is a journey I would not trade for anything. God had a different plan. The cracks began as barely noticeable hairline fractures. At first, they were just tiny ripples in our perfect world, Little things I brushed aside with a gentle "it's nothing." But as days turned to months, those tiny cracks widened. The easy laughter that once filled our home started to fade into uneasy silences. I found myself lying awake at night, wondering when the warmth began to cool. The ache of remembering how we used to be, and the bittersweet realization that something precious was slipping away. Yet, even as I look back on those days, I see them as the foundation of who I was about to become. Because when love that once felt unbreakable starts to crumble, you learn just how strong you can be. Those ha moments may have turned into tears for a while, but they also became the fuel for a new kind of resolve. In the end, the love that once felt unbreakable taught me that sometimes it is the breaking that makes us whole again. There was a time when her name meant nothing to me, just another passing mention in the rhythm of our daily conversations. Vanessa, a simple name, harmless on the surface, and yet it soon became the quiet storm forming behind me. The first time he said it, he spoke so casually that I let out a soft ha, brushing away the tiny sting in my chest. How innocence can sometimes disguise itself as trust. I told myself that she was simply a coworker, nothing more, nothing less. But storms rarely announce themselves. They creep in slowly, silently, until one day you look up and realize the sky above you has darkened. That is exactly how it felt. I began to notice the subtle changes, the ones I wished so desperately to overlook. A new cologne he never used before, a sudden interest in style, the quick swipe of his thumb across his phone whenever a message appeared. Each moment left me with a tightness in my chest, the kind that makes you weep quietly when the lights go out. I remember the first time I heard him laugh at his phone, really laugh, the kind of deep ha that once belonged to our late-night conversations and shared jokes. Hearing that sound directed at someone else felt like a cold wind cutting through me. The ache of realizing that the laughter you once held so close could shift so easily toward another person. It was painful, almost surreal, like watching a version of my life slowly slip through my fingers. Yet, the storm kept building. There were evenings when he returned home smelling faintly of a perfume I did not own, and mornings when he smiled at his screen before remembering to smile at me. Each sign was a small lightning strike, illuminating what I did not want to accept. Still, I told myself not to jump to conclusions, not to drown myself in suspicion. But suspicion does not wait for permission. It grows, it whispers, it tightens its grip until even the calmest heart begins to tremble. And through it all, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet strength, a sternness softening into resolve. The presence of the other woman did not break me the way storms usually break the unprepared. Instead, it awakened a part of me that had been sleeping for far too long. The irony of finding clarity in the middle of emotional chaos. Vanessa may have been the quiet storm forming behind me, but I was becoming the force of nature that would rise in front of her. Suspicion has a strange way of entering your life. It does not knock, and it certainly does not ask permission. It arrives quietly, like a soft whisper behind your ear, and suddenly you find yourself turning around again and again, wondering if your heart is playing tricks on you. That was how it began for me. A few misplaced glances, a strange shift in tone, and a growing silence that made my chest feel hollow. I tried so hard to convince myself that everything was fine. The lies we tell ourselves just to sleep at night. The first sign was his phone. That device had never been a secret in our home. It used to sit openly on the table, buzzing with harmless notifications, his laughter echoing as he shared silly messages with me. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to tilt away from my line of sight. He would hold it closer, shield it with his hand, or take it into another room with a seriousness that sent a cold tremor through me. The sting of realizing that something as simple as a screen could suddenly become a barrier between two people who once shared everything. Then came the nights. The long, lingering nights when he claimed he had extra work. He would come home late with an absent-minded smile, a smile that wavered at the edges. Sometimes he smelled faintly of a perfume I did not own, and that scent made my heart twist with a weeping ache I cannot quite describe. I would sit on the couch, pretending to watch television, forcing out a little ha-ha at the jokes, even though nothing felt funny anymore. It was my attempt to keep the atmosphere light, to hold on to something that was slipping from my grasp. There were moments when he would touch his hair more often, adjust his shirt, check his reflection before leaving the house. These little things should not have mattered, but they did. They mattered because they were new. And newness in a fading relationship often means trouble. Every time he left, I felt a quiet storm forming inside my chest. Awe. The hurt of not knowing what was real anymore. And oh, the sharp pain of pretending not to notice. But the universe has a way of presenting truth at the right time. One afternoon, I walked past his office door and heard the warm ha-ha-ha he once saved for me. It cut deeper than any insult ever could. My feet froze, my breath caught, and my eyes blurred with tears. I fought with trembling resolve. I knew, in that fragile moment, that something had changed in a way that could not be undone. That laughter was meant for someone else now. Still, part of me clung to hope. I told myself not to speculate, not to let my imagination run free. The gentle denial that keeps a heart from breaking too quickly. But the signs kept coming. The sudden gym visits, the new wardrobe, the way he became defensive over harmless questions. Every answer he gave felt like a fragile thread woven from half-truths and distant sighs. And yet, I did not confront him. Not then. I was not ready. Instead, I collected these signs like tiny shards of glass, each one cutting just a little deeper as I held on to them. Ha ha ha. I remember thinking that maybe I was exaggerating, maybe I was losing my mind. But deep down, in the quiet corners of my soul, I knew. I knew that the love which once felt unshakable was trembling under the weight of secrets he no longer wanted to share with me. Suspicion may not have the loudness of confrontation, but it has the power to break you softly. Each sign was a soft fracture, a faint echo of truth whispering through the cracks. How I wished I could unsee them. But seeing them was the first step toward becoming the woman I was meant to be. This was not just the beginning of suspicion, it was the beginning of awakening. The truth does not always arrive with a dramatic crash. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like a cold breeze that brushes against your skin before you even realize the window is open. That was how it happened for me. One ordinary afternoon, while the world outside carried on with its usual rhythm, my world paused with a sudden stillness that made my heart tremble. I still remember that sinking feeling, a heavy ache settling in my chest, as if the air itself had thickened around me. It began with his laptop, left unlocked for the first time in months. I had no intention of invading his privacy. I walked past it, then walked back, then stood there with trembling fingers that refused to move. Something inside me whispered that the truth was waiting, and that whisper felt both terrifying and undeniable. My hands shook, my breath caught, and for a moment, I almost stepped away. Ha ha ha, imagine that, the truth sitting right there, and me trying to pretend that everything was fine. But then I saw her name, Vanessa, bright and bold on the screen, a name that now felt like a blade sliding quietly beneath my ribs. I clicked, barely able to steady my vision. What unfolded in front of me was not a misunderstanding, not a mistake, but an undeniable betrayal. Messages that carried laughter, warmth, affection, and desire. Words he once used for me, now offered so freely to someone else. My heart let out a silent scream, the kind that echoes inside your soul long before it reaches your lips. I scrolled further, each line cutting deeper than the last. Plans they made together, secrets they shared, pictures he had complimented, and then the worst part, the words that shattered whatever pieces of hope I had left. He wrote that he felt alive with her. Alive, as if my love had become a burden he needed to escape. I felt my breath catch, and for a moment the room blurred as tears filled my eyes. Weeping silently, I touched the screen, wondering how the man I once trusted with everything could give his heart so easily to someone else. Then came the receipts, hidden in a folder he thought I would never find. Hotel bookings, dinner reservations, gifts that I never received but paid for with my own trust. Each document felt like a physical blow, a reminder that reality was far crueler than any suspicion my fragile heart had dared to form. Ha ha ha, the bitter kind of laugh escaped me, the one born from shock rather than humor. It was strange, laughing through heartbreak, as if my soul was trying to hold itself together with one last thread. And when I reached the final message, the one where he told her he wished he had met her sooner, I felt something inside me fall completely silent, not broken, not shattered, just silent, a deep, eerie stillness that comes when pain has reached its limit. I sat back, letting the truth wash over me, stinging like icy rain against bare skin. That moment, that discovery, was the end of who I had been, but it was also the beginning of who I was about to become. There comes a moment in every breaking heart when silence becomes heavier than truth. I stood in the kitchen that evening, holding a plate of his favorite dinner, hoping for even the smallest spark of appreciation. How naive of me, to believe that a warm meal could thaw the coldness that had already settled inside him. He walked in without a glance, without a smile, without the softness that once made my world feel safe. I asked if everything was all right. A simple question, a trembling question, and he turned toward me with eyes that felt like winter. No warmth, no hesitation, just a sharp, icy truth delivered without mercy. He said that he could not stand looking at me anymore. He said that I disgusted him. He said that he was done pretending. Each word hit me like a stone, one after another, until my breath felt trapped in my chest. The sting of rejection, the ache of hearing the person you love reduce you to nothing with a single sentence. For a moment, I felt my knees weaken, my hands shook so quietly that even I barely noticed. It was the kind of heartbreak that makes your soul weep before your eyes do. And yet, in the middle of that emotional storm, a strange calm washed over me. Ha ha ha, imagine that, finding calmness in the middle of devastation. But it happened. The pain settled into a cold clarity, a stillness that felt almost empowering. Because, in that moment, I realized something important. His words were not a reflection of my worth. They were a confession of his own failings. That understanding softened the blow just enough for me to lift my head and breathe again. Those cruel words ended everything. But they also opened the door to the person I was about to become. There is a rare kind of silence that arrives after a heart has been shattered. A silence so deep that it almost feels sacred. When his cruel words echoed through the room, I felt something inside me collapse with a quiet ache. The kind of ache that makes your chest tighten and your eyes blur with tears you refuse to let fall. For a moment, I stood there, suspended between breaking and becoming. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of sobbing, or pleading, or losing myself in that pain, a strange calm settled over me. It was gentle at first, like a soft breeze brushing past my skin. Then it grew, steady and unshakable. Imagine the irony of it all. Him expecting me to fall apart, while I stood there feeling stronger by the second. My heartbeat slowed, my breath steadied, and the trembling in my hands faded into stillness. This was the switch. The moment I transformed from a heartbroken woman into someone who finally understood her own worth. I saw his face, smug and certain, waiting for a reaction that never came. The shock in his eyes was almost poetic. He thought he had destroyed me, but instead he had revealed a strength I never knew I carried. A strength born from every tear shed in silence, every doubt swallowed, every betrayal endured. I walked past him with a calm he could not comprehend. No shouting, no chaos, no desperation. Just a quiet resolve that wrapped itself around me like armor. In that single moment, the balance of power changed without a sound. He had taken my heart, but he had no idea what he had awakened. The woman he tried to break was gone. The woman who rose in her place was unshakable. Revenge is not always loud. Sometimes it begins in the quietest moments, the ones where pain transforms into purpose. After the switch inside me settled into unshakable calm, I found myself sitting alone in the dim light of our living room, my heart still aching, yet my mind clearer than it had been in months. The strange comfort of clarity after destruction. My breath trembled, but my resolve did not. I knew that this chapter of my life would not end with tears. It would end with strategy. The first step was understanding exactly what I was dealing with. I opened my laptop, not with shaking hands, but with a steady determination that surprised even me. Ha ha ha, imagine that. Me, the woman he expected to crumble, now typing with the precision of someone preparing for battle. I began gathering everything I could find. Phone records, bank statements, credit card receipts. Each discovery felt like another puzzle piece sliding into place, revealing the full picture of his betrayal. There were dinner reservations I never attended. Hotel bookings made on nights he claimed to work late, and gifts purchased with money from our joint account. The sting of realizing how deeply he underestimated me. But instead of crying, I found strength rising within me. Every piece of evidence became a quiet victory, a reminder that I was not powerless. The next step was seeking legal guidance. I called an attorney known for her sharp mind and unwavering professionalism. Speaking to her filled me with a sense of grounding, like someone had handed me a map in the middle of chaos. She listened patiently as I explained everything, her calm tone encouraging mine to stay steady. She assured me that I had options, strong ones, and that everything he had done could be addressed in a smart, lawful way. The relief that washed over me was almost overwhelming, like a soft embrace after a long night of silent weeping. I began documenting every detail, every late night, every suspicious charge, every message I discovered. I created folders, timelines, and summaries. Even I could not believe how organized heartbreak had made me. I stayed silent through it all, never confronting him again. Silence became my greatest weapon. While he smirked and carried on as if he held every card, I was quietly preparing to upend his entire world. The days that followed were strange. He walked around the house unaware, blissfully convinced that I was still breaking. If only he knew that each soft smile I gave was not forgiveness, but strategy. He had no idea that the calmness in my eyes was not acceptance, but preparation. I watched him carefully, memorizing every lie he told, every shift in his tone, every new excuse he offered. Each moment only strengthened my commitment to remain silent until the perfect time. There is a particular kind of strength that grows in silence. It does not shout, it does not demand attention, and it does not lash out. It waits, patiently, calculating. And that was what I became. A woman who waited, a woman who planned, a woman who crafted her revenge with the elegance of someone sculpting her own rebirth. When the plan was complete, when every detail was polished and ready, I felt something inside me settle. Awe, the softness of knowing that I had risen above the pain. Ha ha ha, the quiet triumph of realizing that he would never see it coming. My revenge would not be loud. It would be legal. It would be smart. It would be silent. And it would cost him everything he tried to take from me. Confrontation is not always a storm of screams and accusations. Sometimes it is a quiet, calculated moment where truth speaks louder than any raised voice ever could. I waited for the perfect evening, one where he returned home with that same careless confidence, the same smugness that made my heart ache in the beginning. The bittersweet irony of preparing to shatter that confidence with a single, steady breath. He walked in, humming softly, unaware that the life he had built on lies was about to fracture. I sat at the dining table, calm, composed, almost serene. When he saw me sitting there, waiting, he paused. For the first time in months, he looked uncertain. Ha ha ha, a tiny flicker of satisfaction warmed my chest. I simply gestured to the seat across from me. He sat down slowly, his eyes darting nervously. I placed a stack of printed papers between us. Receipts, messages, hotel bookings, screenshots. All the evidence he believed I would never find. His pupils shrank, his breath hitched, and his hands trembled just enough for me to notice. The sight of his fear was almost poetic, a quiet justice I had been waiting for. I know everything, I said softly. No shouting, no bitterness, just truth. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Silence wrapped around us like a thick fog. He tried again, stuttering excuses, half-baked explanations, meaningless apologies. I watched him unravel with a calmness that felt unreal, a strength born from every tear I had cried alone. I slid the messages forward. He stared at them, jaw tightening, eyes widening. "This is not what you think," he whispered. The desperation in his voice would have once broken me, but not now. Ha ha ha, not anymore. I leaned back, letting him drown in the weight of his own actions. "You told her you wished you met her sooner," I said quietly, my voice steady, almost gentle. The words hit him like a physical blow. His face crumpled, and he tried to reach for my hand across the table. I pulled away, and the hurt in his eyes was sharp enough to feel in the air between us. The tragic comedy of a man begging for mercy only after the mask has fallen. He began to weep, soft, panicked sobs that echoed through the silent room. But I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness. Just a powerful sense of release. For months, I carried this weight alone. Now he felt it crash onto his shoulders. He begged. He pleaded. He promised change. But his words floated like smoke, empty, shapeless, meaningless. When I finally spoke again, my voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had already moved on. This marriage is over. I have already prepared everything. His head snapped up, eyes wide with fear and shock. And in that single moment, he understood. Truly understood. The woman he underestimated, the woman he tried to break, had outsmarted him with silence, strength, and undeniable truth. He realized I knew everything. And he knew he had already lost. Consequences have a way of arriving slowly at first, like distant thunder, and then suddenly crashing down with a force that makes everyone step back in shock. When the truth finally settled into his life, I watched the world he so carelessly built begin to crumble piece by piece. There was a strange sadness in witnessing the downfall of someone I once loved. But there was also a firm understanding that he had crafted this collapse with his own hands. The first blow came when he received the legal documents. His face had already turned pale during our confrontation, but this was different. This was the moment he realized that my calm silence had been strategy, not surrender. He read the papers with trembling fingers, each line tightening the knot of panic in his throat. Ha ha ha, the irony tasted almost sweet. He had spent months believing I was blind, while I was preparing the very ground he would stumble upon. Then came the unraveling at work. Rumors spread quickly, as they always do, and suddenly he was the man who mixed business with betrayal. His polished reputation dulled faster than he could repair it. Meetings became colder. Colleagues became distant. Opportunities slipped away, one after another, until he found himself standing in the empty space created by his own choices. He had once walked through life so confidently, and now he looked like someone trying desperately to hold on to the fading edges of what he had lost. But the heaviest consequence came from the person he thought would replace me, Vanessa. She disappeared from his life as quickly as she had entered it. When she realized that the chaos surrounding him was not temporary but created by him, she stepped away with quiet finality. No dramatic exit, no emotional goodbye. She simply left. And the silence she left behind was louder than any argument. I almost felt a sad little awe for him when I heard, but the truth was simple. He had built a future on lies, and lies have no foundation. Days passed, and I watched him shrink into someone I barely recognized. He tried reaching out, leaving messages filled with regret, weeping through apologies that arrived far too late. But by then, my heart had already healed into something stronger, something he no longer had the power to shake. He stood outside my life like a man staring through a locked door, unable to comprehend how easily it closed behind him. His life fell apart quietly and completely, and I watched it happen not with joy, not with bitterness, but with the calm acceptance of someone who finally understood that justice can be heartbreakingly poetic. Transformation does not always begin with fireworks or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it starts with a simple breath, a quiet moment where you look at yourself in the mirror and whisper, "Enough." That was how my glow-up began, with a soft exhale and a heart still bruised from betrayal. There was a gentle sadness lingering in me, but there was also a flicker of something new, something fierce. I decided that if my life was going to change, then it would change on my terms. The first step was reclaiming my space. I cleaned the house with a determination I had never felt before, folding away pieces of him until the rooms felt lighter. Ahaha. I even laughed at myself when I threw out an old shirt of his that he never liked me wearing. A silly little victory, but a victory nonetheless. Every corner I refreshed became a reminder that this was my home now, my sanctuary, my rebirth in progress. Then I turned inward. I began to care for myself the way I once cared for him. Long walks, soothing music, evenings with tea and soft blankets. The quiet tenderness of learning to comfort myself was beautiful in a way I had never experienced. I started reading again, writing again, doing everything that once made my soul feel alive. And with each passing day, the version of me he broke began to fade, replaced by someone stronger, brighter, more whole. I changed my routine, my habits, even my style. I bought new clothes, not to impress anyone, but to reflect the woman I was becoming. I stood taller, walked slower, and spoke with a confidence that surprised even me. One afternoon, I caught my reflection laughing and honest, joyful, ha ha ha, and it startled me. It had been so long since I had seen myself that way. That moment melted something inside me, a small weeping release of the pain I carried for too long. I invested in myself. New classes, new skills, new friendships. I surrounded myself with people who appreciated my worth, people who saw my strength, even when I struggled to see it myself. Slowly, quietly, beautifully, I transformed. Not for him, not because of him, but in spite of him. There were days when he would see me from afar, eyes widening with the realization that the woman standing before him was someone he could no longer reach, someone he could no longer hurt. The poetic justice of that moment was almost tender. He had thrown me aside believing I would crumble. Instead, I rose into someone who looked at him without fear, without longing, without any trace of the woman who once begged for his love. My glow-up was not about beauty. It was about power. It was about reclaiming every piece of myself he tried to dim. It was about rising so high that he could only watch from the ground below, reaching for a version of me that no longer existed. I became someone he cannot reach, and that was the greatest transformation of all. Karma has a timing so precise that it almost feels handcrafted. It does not hurry, it does not stall. It simply arrives when the lesson is ready to be learned. For him, the lesson began the moment he realized that the woman standing before him was no longer the one he had broken. The look in his eyes when he saw my strength was something I will never forget. A mixture of shock, longing, and a sadness he tried desperately to hide. He tried reaching out first with messages, then calls, then long paragraphs filled with apologies that trembled between regret and desperation. He wrote that he missed me, that he needed me, that he finally understood what he had lost. Ha ha ha, the irony twisted through me like a bittersweet ribbon. He wanted back the woman he had destroyed, the one who had once wept quietly in the dark for him. But she no longer existed. She had grown wings while he was busy chasing shadows. There were days when he showed up near places he knew I visited, watching me with eyes full of the regret he should have felt long ago. I would catch him staring at me, his expression softening into an ash of disbelief. He could see the glow in me, the confidence, the rebirth. He could see a life he was no longer invited into, and the realization broke him in a way he never expected. The true beauty of karma is that it delivers clarity as much as it delivers consequence. He finally understood that the comfort he once dismissed, the laughter he once ignored, and the heart he once mistreated were treasures he could never regain. His regret arrived like a wave crashing on the shore. Too late, too loud, too empty. I offered him no anger, no coldness, no revengeful words. My silence was enough. My happiness was enough. My rising was enough. The quiet justice of it all. He had chosen his path with confidence. Now he walked it with sorrow. His regret arrived too late, and I had already moved far beyond his reach. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it rises quietly within you, shaped by moments that once shattered your heart. When I look back at everything I endured, I feel a soft in my knowing how far I have come. There were nights filled with silent weeping, mornings where I forced a small ha ha ha, just to remind myself that joy still existed somewhere inside me. Yet every broken moment, every painful truth, carved a deeper resilience into my spirit. I learned that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to rise despite it. It is choosing yourself when someone else has failed to choose you. It is understanding that your worth is not determined by who stays or who leaves. That realization wrapped around my heart like a warm embrace, reminding me that healing is not weakness. It is power. What this taught me is simple. Love can break you, but it can also remake you. Betrayal can wound you, but it can also awaken you. And sometimes the version of yourself that emerges from the ashes is far more beautiful than the one who stood there before. Ha ha ha. The small victories that once felt meaningless became proof of my strength. In the end, I discovered that the greatest power I ever held was the ability to rebuild myself. And that is a truth no one can ever take away. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Your support means more than you know. If this story made your heart ache or brought even a small ha 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 to your day, then do not leave without joining this community. Subscribe, tap the bell, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here, and I would love to hear what touched you the most.